I'm gonna make Pico de Gallo. So Pico de Gallo means, you know, beak of the rooster, but it's essentially just a raw tomato, onion, and chili salsa. So Roma tomatoes for this. You could use other tomatoes too, but you want something that has sort of, you know, Roma tomatoes tend to also be higher in pectin than, say, like a beefsteak tomato or some of those bigger, fatter heirloom variety tomatoes. There are heirloom Romas, of course, but you know, you want like a saucing tomato, something that is going to hold its shape up and have nice, discrete chunks that don't just turn watery and break down. I do my tomatoes like this. I split them in half and then just use the tip of my knife to cut out that part of the core. Then when you're dicing tomatoes, you want a real sharp knife. Go across them like that, and then across again to make your dice. If you want it to be real extra fancy, you could, you know, remove this core and the seeds, because, I don't know, some chefs would have you do that, but I don't find the need to do that, and I think they add some nice flavor in there. You know, the jelly part of the tomato actually has a lot of really good tomato flavor, and the seeds don't bother me. There might be some kids or adults around who want just plain tomatoes instead of the Pico de Gallo. So I pulled aside some of the plain diced tomatoes, and we'll dice up the rest for the Pico de Gallo. I always find, whether you're doing prep at home or in a restaurant or wherever, it's always better to sort of batch your processes. So instead of thinking of just the Pico de Gallo and cutting the tomatoes for that, and then separately later on cutting the tomatoes, just have diced tomatoes on the side. You know, if you're dicing tomatoes, just get in the groove of dicing tomatoes and dice all the tomatoes you need for every preparation. I think it goes a lot more efficiently that way. The colors of a Pico de Gallo, you know, the red, white, and green, they are the colors of the Mexican flag. And however, I am going to be using a red onion as opposed to a white onion. Any onion will work. You know, a white onion actually has a slightly sort of milder flavor than a red onion does. But I had a red onion here. Get rid of those seeds again. For these, we're gonna cut them lengthwise into strips like that. Keeping our fingers kind of curled up so that we don't cut ourselves. And then I'll cut crosswise into a real fine dice. Ooh, I can smell these. These smell like they're actually pretty hot serranos. Serranos tend to be a little hotter than like a jalapeno, so if you want a little milder, you could use a jalapeno in this. Or you could omit the chili altogether if you don't want any heat. I think we'll start with one chili because it smells pretty hot. Half an onion is probably good for this. It's a pretty big onion. So when I'm cutting the onion, I always aim my knife not quite for the center of the onion, but for not quite straight up and down, but kind of for a point that's a little bit below the onion. So all my lines kind of converge to a point down here. That's the most efficient way to get the most even dice with the fewest number of cuts. And if you've seen my math and onion math video, you've probably heard me talk about that anyway. Into the bowl. Grab some cilantro. The stems are perfectly fine to eat as long as you chop them up fine enough. Hold the stems so that they're all kind of pointing that way, and then I'll just slice up really thin against the direction of the stems. That way I know that all my stems are going to be in very small edible pieces, and then I'll finish it off with a rough chop. This knife, by the way, is the what I'm calling the shitoku. So it's, you know, santoku is a knife with three qualities, a very classic Japanese shape. This one is called we call it a shitoku, which has a slightly more tapered curved tip, so that you can do sort of Western style precise knife work with the tip. So shitoku means four qualities, and this is the version from Kan Kitchen, which is the lower priced version. These are made out of 67-layer Damascus stainless steel. We also have produced a sort of the fancier knife nerds version with my friend Gordon Hansen down in Fall City, Oregon, which is made from a carbon steel. and hand hammered, you know, handmade. But anyway, this version, the Con version, you can find from Con's website, K-A-N. The Gordon version, if you follow me on social media, I announce them every time there's a sort of a new knife drop, and you can pick those up. Or if you're on my Patreon, which you are because you're watching this video, I announce it on Patreon as well, typically with some kind of discount code. Stay tuned if you're interested in those knives. So we got all our basic ingredients in there. I'm gonna season with some salt. We're gonna season with some lime juice. Did you know you're supposed to put the limes in this way on a lime juicer? It looks like it should fit in naturally that way, but you put them in this way and it turns the limes kind of inside out. I don't know when I learned that a long time ago, but it kind of blew my mind when I saw that. I was like, oh, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. And if you've always known that and your friends didn't, don't be the guy who's like, oh, you didn't know that? Your friends could be one of the lucky 10,000 of the day. Wouldn't it be nice if you could learn something new every day? All right. We'll just mix this all up, and that's our basic Pico de Gallo. We'll taste it for seasoning, for acid, and for salt. This is great on chips, great with like chilled seafood, you know, if you mix in some cooked chilled shrimp in here, and put it on a tostada, that's delicious. Great on tacos, great on fajitas. Yep, that's great. Take a Pico at that.